Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl.
And I'm Katie Lowe.
Well, hey, Chris and Katie. Today we have a very special guest from Annapolis, Maryland. We have Alyssa Cook with us today, who is a mother and an ultra runner. She does ultra races anywhere from 50Ks, 50 miles, 100Ks, backyard ultras, 12-hour challenges, 100-milers. We are really excited to talk with her and get to know her a little bit more today. So thank you very much, Alyssa. We appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I just got done telling everybody here in the little pre-race meeting that we have that, sometimes we have guests that we know really well. And then other times we have guests who we see at races all the time and we say hi and talk to them. And Alyssa would fall under that category where we've waved at each other on the trail a billion times, especially during Kakapen, and never really sat down and talked to her. So I'm really excited to get to know her a little bit better. So why don't we start with you, Alyssa, telling us a little bit about who you are away from the running world?
Outside of running, I'm a stay-at-home mom to an almost 4-year-old. So life is pretty busy and it helps training because I'm always on my feet and I'm always on the go and I'm always eating snacks. So it's perfect.
So, Alyssa, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you first got into running and how that transitioned and you worked up towards being an ultra runner?
Okay, so I never grew up as a runner. I have an older brother, about 7 years older, who was the runner in our family, and he's the only runner in our family. But then, I don't know, like maybe 10 years ago, I got into it for just like the health and wellness benefits of it. And then we moved to Annapolis during COVID, and I was a stay-at-home dog mom, but my dog was terrified of everything, so I spent my days, like, just sitting outside of our apartment watching all these people run and bike and being so active. So I started to slowly explore Annapolis by foot. I would just keep running around. And then I finally found a running group that I started running with. And again, it was still like during COVID. So the meetups were not constant. So I was trying to build up. And then I was just hearing so many stories. Like a lot of the runners were marathoners. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I can barely run 3 miles, but maybe one day I could go for a marathon. And then it was probably 2022, I think, right around 20, or no, it was like 2021, I think. There's a race hosted by the Annapolis Striders that's called Endless 6 hour or 6 hour Endless Summer Run. And it's right near my house. It was during COVID, so no spectators were allowed. And at that point, I was running with a couple girls who were training for marathons. So I was like, it's a cheap race. I'm going to jump in on it. I'm just going to see what I can do. And I went out and I knocked out my longest run, 6 hours, 40 miles, and I won. And I was like, whoa, I've never been good at anything in my life, and I just did this, and I had so much fun doing it. I was a little sore afterwards, but nothing, like, super crazy that was, like, terrifying that I was like, "I'm never gonna do this again," but I was immediately like, "What am I going to do next?" So that's kinda how it started.
So, at what point did you realize you were capable of competing for wins instead of just finishing the races?
Never really go out to compete to win just because I don't have like good trainings and I don't follow plans. I just wing it, and I stick to local small races just because now being a mom, it's convenient and I'm a stay-at-home parent, so I watch our budget. I try not to spend a ton of money on racing and what goes into racing. So I just stick to like the small local races. And if I'm having fun and I feel good, I don't know what my limits are. So I've just been testing the limits and it's been very rewarding.
I like that. If you feel good, you run faster, right? And then you just,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. So part of the reason why we wanted to bring you on today is to talk about your incredible run that you've been on in the last 3 months. So I'm gonna spit some facts here for a second. So starting with the C&O Canal 100 miler, you were third place overall for the females, and you were just over the 20-hour mark, which we'll talk about that time here in a second. But 20 hours, 1 minute, and 40 seconds is what I have. And then you follow that up about a month later at Last One Standing, the More Miles Backyard Challenge with 62 miles. And then what was it, 2 weeks later, I think, maybe 3 weeks later, you joined the 50-mile club at Kakapen 12-hour challenge. So that's a pretty big 3 month session right there. So like what clicked during that time period for you to run so well in those three ultras?
So I have a friend, Meg Landymore, and she's also a coach. So I worked with her this like starting at the beginning of the year, and she wrote me up a training plan and I followed it and everything was going great. And most of my friends that I run with are we're training for either Boston or Boston qualifier. So my training plan was mostly focusing on time on my feet, and their training plans were focusing on like marathon paces. So I was getting extra miles because in my training because I was training faster and I did a lot of speed workouts. Not as fast as my marathon running friends, but I tried to keep up with them. I was running on very tired legs. So, anyways, I worked with Meg and did a training plan. And I really tried to stick to the plan. I really tried to dial in on my nutrition because I've never been good at nutrition. Um, and the more podcasts that I listen to, the more research that I do, the more I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter if it's a gel, if it's a solid, whatever you can take and whatever you can get to set on your stomach, it's going to help you. So I really, really focused on my nutrition. And then so when I was going into CNO 100, I found out that I won a free entry to the last one standing. And so that wasn't originally on my plan. But I was like, I'm going to do this because I follow Lauren Kramer and I'm a big fan and I wanted to be a part of that. And I'm glad I was a part of that. So but I knew that CNO was my A goal race for the year, and I wanted to try to break sub 20, and I got so, so close. But everything clicked. Like, I went out way faster than I was supposed to go out, and I didn't necessarily blow up, but the only problems that I had was when it got dark and it was nighttime, I was tired, and I'm not used to running, like, Finley goes to bed at 8 o'clock. I'm also in bed at 8 o'clock. So I didn't really do any night training, and that's what I struggled with the most. Like my stomach was fine, my hydration was fine, my legs were fine. I was just very tired. And then going into the last one standing, I thought I knew what the women's record was, and that was kind of like a goal. I was like, I feel good enough from the 100 that I think I could go for the women's record. And then that's it. Like, I'm done after that because I still wanted to run Kakapen because Kakapen was on my list of running races this year. But then I started to have like some knee issues and it was getting dark and it was getting late and I was like, this wasn't originally on my plan. I'm happy with how long I lasted, and I'm going to call it quits here. And then Cacapen, I recovered well from the last one standing. And Cacapen was a total disaster at the beginning. And I didn't expect to make it to 50 miles. But I really just ran smart. I ran the way that you're supposed to run. And I started out very, very slow, very conservative. I took the breaks each loop. I refueled, I rehydrated. And by midday, I was feeling great. I did have a friend who came out to pace me one loop, and I had an hour and 10 or an hour and 20 minutes left on the clock. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to attempt it. Even if I just attempt the 50 miles, I'm going to do great. Or I'm going to like be satisfied with that. So I did get that finished, and that was great. That was like that completed my 3-month race segment, and I was like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm taking the summer off."
Katie had a very similar last lap of Cacapen story as well. Did you want to share that, Katie?
Yeah, I had been kind of timing my laps all day long, and I knew that my last, let's see, when I did Cacapen, I did, what would it have been, 8 laps. So on 6, I was like, the last couple have been an hour and 30 minutes or an hour and 40 minutes. And then so I was telling myself, okay, I'm obviously going back out on 7. When I came back from 7, on the way back, I was like, if I have 90 minutes or more, I'm going to go out. If I have 90 minutes or less, so if it was either more than 90 minutes or less than 90 minutes. More than, I'm going to try for another loop. If I have less than 90 minutes, I'm not going to have enough time because it would take me too long and it would be worth nothing. I had exactly 90 minutes left when I came in
Oh
after lap
god.
7. So it didn't even like help. That little rule didn't even help me. So I was like, I guess I'll
Yeah.
go back out. And I'm just the kind of like what you said, I'm just going to go for it. I actually didn't even know I was going to go for it until I passed the little 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile turnaround spots.
Yeah.
But I just found myself keep pushing forward, and I ended up running almost as fast as my first loop that day just because I think I was so scared that I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
finish. So
Yeah.
it's crazy what we can do when we're put up against that time limit and we like bet on
Right.
ourselves. I'm just really proud of that race because of that. But I
It's
will
so
say
smart.
that was only mile 40 for me, not mile 50.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here the whole time trying to imagine doing 2 more loops in addition to that.
Oh god.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It was crazy. It was wild.
So, Alyssa, I mean, each of those performances that we just talked about are amazing in and of themselves, but does any one of those stand out to you as one that really surprised you, like that you really didn't see coming when you towed the line that morning?
I mean, both CNO 100 and Cacapen were both like crying at the finish line moments for me because growing up and 5 years ago, I would have never expected to be able to run 100 miles. Even last year, when my friends were like, you should really take a jab at it. I think you would be fine. Like, you should really sign up for Rim to River. And I was like, no way, there's no way. And then we watched Courtney Dauwalter's documentary videos, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, and I was like, that's so stupid. Why would anybody go out there and run for 20, 24 hours plus whatever? And here I am. But last year when I ran Kick Haven, I met somebody and they were like, what's the best thing, or what's like a pro of yourself and what's a con of yourself? And one thing I said was, I give up way too early. Like, if I start to experience some type of pain, if I start to like feel finicky about something, or like my stomach starts to go wrong, like turn on me, I give up. I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to be miserable. I have responsibilities. I'm an adult. I can't afford to like go home and lay around on the couch for a couple days. So getting through CNO 100, I was like, I really shocked myself that I didn't I didn't give up. I didn't, even through the boredom of running through the night, even through the exhaustion, I still finished. And, I was trying to race against the clock when I realized that I had 2 miles left. And if I just ran like a 9:30 pace, I could make it under 20 hours. So I did. I picked up the last 2 miles, but I got stuck on the hill going up Manidokin. But it was fine. Like, I'm still happy with that. And then again at Cacapen, it started out as a disaster, and I was like, I'm not even gonna make it 15 miles. Like, my knee is wrecked, my hip hurt. I'm really scared that I tore something. And I was like, it's so hot and humid, it's miserable. Like, I don't want to do this. So I was like, I'm just gonna get to 15 miles, which would have been 3 loops. I got to that point, I took some ibuprofen, took a little break in my aid station, and I had like there was a friend that was camping with, or like set up beside of us, and my fiance Josh was there, and he was crewing me. And I was like, I'll just put my headphones in and I'll do one more loop and I'll see how I feel. And I wish somebody had a drone out there, because I had like my own concert out there. I was dancing, I was singing, like whatever was in that Motrin was super powerful, and I felt so good that loop. And I came back in and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get to a 50K and then I'll be good. So I again was still fueling, I was feeling better, and I got to a 50K. And I was like, you know what? I could make it 2 more loops, and then I have plenty of time that I could just walk the last loop, like one more loop, and get 45 miles in, and I'd be good. Like, that's where I usually make it to, is 45. Like, that's what I've done the last 2 years. And I was like, I'll be fine. And that's really nice that I can start my recovery in the middle of a race and I just walk a whole 5 mile loop or whatever. But then I got a text from a friend who was like, hey, I'm on my way. If you're still running, I'll pace you. And I was like, oh, okay. So that definitely like perked me up, and I ran like a faster loop that time and picked up my friend who paced me. And then I realized I had more time, and yeah, I cried at the finish, and the whole way home I was like, I never gave up. I never ever gave up. I was like, I dealt through some pain, and it wasn't anything that was like I don't know. It didn't like I wasn't going to die or anything. It was just painful, and I don't think I really have injured myself too bad. So I was just like, I never gave up, and that's something that I've also been working on, is just trying not to give up when there's a little bit of pain or discomfort, or something seems to go wrong, or I feel guilt that I should be home being a parent and a spouse and not out on the trails or the road running miles and miles and miles.
Looking back, which of the races would you say you're most proudest of and why?
Probably Cacapen, just because I never gave up, and that was, it's been a goal of mine to reach 50 miles the last 3 years that I've done it. And I started out so slow that like my miles were 15 to 16-minute miles. And for me, that's really slow. And that took a toll on my mentality of like, if you're running 15, 16-minute miles, you're never going to make it to 50 miles today. So early on in the race, I was like, maybe I'll podium, but I'm definitely not getting 50 today. So to see how much different the outcome was going into that day, and how I just stuck to it, and just, I was laid back about it, and I just didn't give up. I was super proud. That's probably my best race, my favorite memory.
What's funny is that you've been talking about how you started out slow, and Adam and I were following along because we knew a lot of people running Cacapen,
Yeah.
and we really enjoyed it when we did it last year. However, we at some point were like looking at the results, and it was midday. I don't even remember what time it was, maybe just a few hours in. And knowing so many people running, I'm not gonna say any names, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, so and so is ahead of Alyssa Cook? How is that
Yeah.
possible?" I was because just from, now you've built this reputation that,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah, and
watching,
it
we
didn't
know what
help
to
that there was
expect.
a little bit of pressure. Yeah, there was a little bit of pressure of like, oh, the three-peat, or is Alyssa coming back for a three-peat win? And there was another girl, Kathleen, that was there
Yeah.
that we had run it together last year, and we were like, hey, let's just go to this number and then we'll stop. And then we were both still going and we were like, let's just stop at this number. And we were both struggling. And she was in front of me probably the first few laps. And I mean, she was coming in super fast on the laps. So that took like a mental toll of like, wow, I can't even keep up with Kathleen this year. Like, I'm really struggling. What is wrong with me? But yeah,
Right, and from our perspective, you never know when somebody goes out for these types of races, their goal might not be 50 miles that day. Their goal
yeah,
might just to be get a long run in. So, it's never coming from a judgmental space. But I think I
yeah.
do remember you talking about getting that 50-mile. What do you get? A pint glass? Did you get your pint glass then this
I
year
got
for the
ripping.
50?
Yeah.
A lot of miles to run for a glass, but I did it too. I had to go back and get that glass, you know. Katie, I thought for sure that your follow-up question was going to be which of the three races were her least favorite, but we won't make her answer that question. So what's really cool about these three races that we're talking about today is that Chris, Katie, and I have all run them. At least one or two of them. I don't think we've all done all three, but yeah, so it's a pretty good mix here. But let's talk about the Canal 100 just a little bit more. So I'd be interested to hear what your race plan going into the Canal 100 was and if you followed it. So I'll give you a little background. Before I ran my first Canal 100, my plan going in was to run for 5 miles and then I was going to walk for like 4 or 5 minutes, like just walk. And then I would run 5 miles and then walk 4 to 5 minutes. We went down the mountain and got onto the canal. And somehow, after like 2 miles, I found myself next to Mike Wardian and we were just chatting and talking. And then, like, we got to the 5 mile mark and he didn't stop to walk. So I was like, well, if he's not walking, I'm not walking. So my whole plan went out the window in about the first 40 minutes of a 16-hour race, you know? So I'd be interested to hear what your plan was and did you follow it?
I'll start off by saying I didn't follow it. Meg was very good at giving me a plan of running. I think it was like a 10-ish to 12-minute mile per mile pace and just trying to keep that as long as I can. And then whatever I need to do in the back half, I'll have pacers. So that was one of the reasons I picked CNO 100 was I am terrified of wildlife and I didn't know if I could run at night by myself. So logistically, since I'm from Western Maryland, I have friends up there and then I have friends in Annapolis. And even though they're all road running friends, the CNO is fairly easy. Anybody can run it. So I had friends from both areas able to come pace me from 60 to 100. So that was great. So my plan was, I'll go easy through the day. And then when I pick up my pacers at mile 60, then it'll feel like a Saturday long run with my group of friends that I typically run with. And, we haven't seen each other all week because most of them were running Boston and then took the week off. So I was like, I'll get everybody's race recap, get everybody's life updates. That'll keep me busy. And then I was going to pick up Meg, I think around mile 80. And then at that point, I was going to slow back down and just like take a little bit of a break, take it easy from 80 to it was like 90 like somewhere around the 90-mile mark. And then I was going to pick up more different pacers at that point, and then I was going to try to speed back up for a faster finish. That's not how it went at all. I went out way too fast because that hill coming down out of Manidokin, they were like, it gets bottlenecked. So, of course, I'm like, all right, I'm going to zoom around this field and I'm going to fly down the Manidokin Hill so that I don't get stuck in the bottleneck. So I did that. I got down on the C&O, but then it's all flat. So it's like, at what point do you catch yourself and say, okay, like you're not going to be able to sustain an 8:30 minute pace for 100 miles, like not even 50 miles, not for me at least. I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I was like, okay, at 5 miles, I'll carry this for 5 miles and then I'll just back off. I didn't. I kept going and I was like, oh, I feel good. And then I see you guys. I saw Yana Pernetsky, or however you say her last name. I see her out there, and it's just a great time. The aid stations were amazing, and everybody's like so amped up. The adrenaline's high. I just like, I can't slow down. I PR'd my 50-mile time, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is not how you're supposed to do things. But finally, at like 50 miles, I was kind of bored, and I was like, okay, and I have 50 more miles. Like, this is going to be a long, long day. But I made it to my Pacers and I picked them up, and I was good for like a mile or two. And then I had to like start taking more walking breaks at that. I definitely slowed way, way down the second half. Just, I was so exhausted. And then I started having trouble with like stomach issues around mile 80. So that was not the race plan, but I know what to expect and I know what to change. Then I crossed the finish line and I looked at Lance and I was like, I'll see you next year.
Well, that's pretty cool. Appreciate that explanation of how you approached your race plan. But during that time, I know you talked earlier about how you got to the last 2 miles and you knew that if you could run that 9:30 pace, you had a really good shot of breaking 20 hours. But was there a moment earlier in the day where you started to think about, wow, today is really going to be a special day?
I mean, when I hit the 50-mile mark at, I don't know, it was like 8.5 hours, I was like, wow, like training with friends running the Boston Marathon was great throughout this training plan. Like, I'm going really fast. And then I was like, wow, like I cannot run this fast. But I knew I was still going to be right around the 20-hour mark, that I would like occasionally get teary eyed and just be like, I feel so good. Besides the exhaustion, like, I feel really good. Like, I can't believe I'm capable of this. I can't believe I can do this. So, even though I could feel myself slowing down drastically, I still was very proud of myself and I didn't get like any negative thoughts of like, okay, well, you're not going to make it under 20 hours, so just drop now. I was just really impressed and really grateful that I was going so far, so long, and feeling so good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you picked that point because I know for me when I've done similar things in long races where I get to the halfway point and I'm way ahead of pace from where I think I could be. It goes one of two ways. I either think I'm doing really great or I'm like, "Oh no. What have I done?" So I'm glad you were able to keep that positive mindset there.
So then what were the toughest miles of the race?
Probably like 80 to 90-ish, like yeah, the 80s and the low 90s, when I started having the fatigue of eating and the exhaustion and then the stomach issues, and then going into an aid station. And again, the aid stations were amazing. Everybody was awesome and very supportive, but the one aid station only had crunchy peanut butter and salt and vinegar chips. And I was like, this is awful. I'm not eating this. And they were like, no, you really, really need to eat. So then I was just kind of like, I don't know, like I had gels and I had just some snacks, like candy snacks with me. But I was so over it at that point. But I also didn't like I wasn't craving anything at that point. So it was just really hard to eat. And that was probably my lowest points.
Got it. All right. Hey, Alyssa. So at one point during the race, you had to realize that you were like in the top three or top five in the female race. What moment did you know that you were in a podium position? And was there some back and forth going on with other females?
There was a lot of back and forth. For a while, it was me and another girl who was running between, I believe, second and third. And then we both kind of faded off. And then another female came up. Like she played a really smart race and ended up winning the race. But she came like the later half of the day, the later half of the race. She came up and came in front of both of us. And still at that point, like I was going between second and third place. And then nightfall happened, and I thought I was in second place. Like the rest of the night, I was like, wow, I can't believe my first 100, even just a podium, but like second place was wild. But I think when I stopped for an emergency bathroom stop, the third place female came up ahead of me and she passed me. And we didn't realize it. We thought she was just a pacer to another runner, but she was actually. And so when I finished and Lance was like, congratulations, we're in third place, I was like, oh, third place. Like, I'm still really excited. Did not expect a podium or my first 100. But I was like, wait, where did she pass me? She's like, it's like she finished a few minutes ahead of you. And that was fine. It was really good. But yeah, I knew like throughout the entire race, I stayed around like third place most of the race. And then towards the end of the race, I was like, okay, well, if I lasted this long or to put for a podium spot, like I'm not going to let it go now. So I made sure I stayed on top of moving forward at least.
Yeah, Chris and I can tell you for sure, and, I bet Katie probably remembers as well. But I've run the race twice, and I've paced once, and Chris has paced twice. Katie's paced once. At nighttime, it does get twice. At nighttime, it does get difficult to like figure out who's who, and if somebody coming at you is a pacer or a racer or just a deer, like who knows? You can't tell like who is who
Exactly.
out there at night. So yeah, it's very easy to lose track of places and people.
Yep. And the greetings kind of fade too. Like you're not as social at night. Like everybody's like, okay. Like once you reach the end, like to turn around and go back to the finish line, you're kind of like, all right in the headspace. Yeah, this is the home stretch. You're going home, like you're going to the finish line now. And so there's not a whole lot of socialization going on between anybody that you're passing or anybody that you see along the way.
All right, so I think we're gonna skip ahead now and talk about my favorite race format of the three races that you've done, the more miles, last one standing backyard. You mentioned earlier that you got a free entry into the race from Lauren for winning a contest and decided to kind of add that to your race schedule. Was that your first backyard or had you done them before?
It was my first official backyard. There's a race on the Eastern Shore called Pemberton, and it's a 5K every hour on the hour for 24 hours. And I've done that, but this was my first official last one standing.
Is there anything about this particular race format, the last one backyard format, that you find attractive and enjoy? Or is this just something you picked up just to do something a little different?
I like that you can run slow. You don't have to finish, like, you don't have to compete each loop or anything. It's there's a lot of thinking that is involved, you know, how much time do you wanna give yourself to break in between loops? Or, do you want to drag out each loop and not give yourself a break? And there's no end point. You choose your end point. I really like that. I've always wanted to do one. A bunch of my friends have done Capital Backyard, and I follow along with that. And I was like, that would be great. When I did the Pemberton 24-hour race, it really broke me. I got sick at the end, I was exhausted, I was miserable for, like, 2 or 3 days afterwards. I felt like I had the flu every time I was done with it. So I was really excited to do the more miles to go last one standing because I knew that it was something that was gonna be difficult for me, and I wanted the challenge.
So, being that it's a different format, how did you approach each yard mentally?
I just wanted to go out and I wanted to meet other people and I just wanted to enjoy it. I was there by myself. I mean, my mom came out and my friend Meg came out during the day for a couple hours, but I was on my own and I love hearing other people's stories. I love meeting people and I was like, this is just another opportunity. Mostly everyone isn't racing each loop, so you're able to have better conversations with people, and I ended up meeting, like, friends of friends or, making connections to, "Oh, you know this person, I know that person," So it was really cool, but, I just wanted to have fun and enjoy most of it.
That was one thing I really enjoyed too. You and I don't know if you remember, but late in the afternoon, I think it was, you and I shared a couple of yards together, and I really enjoyed getting to know more about you. We had met at Cacapen briefly the year before, but really hadn't had a chance to talk. So I enjoyed sharing a couple of yards with you and hearing your thoughts on the race format, and I was glad you were there. So I agree with you. That's one of the best things about that format.
Yeah.
You guys are always so nice about these things, about like talking to each other during the race and making new friends. What I want to know is, you did 15 yards. Did you have any left? Did you make your own finish line? Like you said, did you make it too early? Do you think you had one more in the tank, or did you drop at the perfect time?
I definitely think I had more left because when I woke up the next morning, I didn't feel like I just ran 62 miles for 15 hours or so or whatever. And my friends were joking. They were like, that's the difference between 100 miles and 60 miles. But I I started having some leg issues and knee pain, and it was dark, and I was I knew I had Cacapen a few weeks later, and I wanted to go to Cacapen and at least run 12 hours, whether I made, a certain amount of miles. I wasn't worried about that. I just wanted to go and make it 12 hours. So I was worried that had I kept going at the last one standing, that I would have tripped and fallen or something. Because that is a very technical course, especially when you don't run trails. That's a technical course. So I jokingly told my mom when I was going back out on that last loop, I was like, "You know what? I know you're not in your prime anymore. How about we wrap this up and call it a night?" She was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I don't know." And I'm kind of glad, like, I opened up the door to backyards. And how my friend Meg put it was good that I didn't go out there and I didn't completely drain myself. I know that there's some left that now I can go run another backyard and, test the waters a little bit more and see how it is. I also had to solo parent that week. and we taught my son how to ride a pedal bike. So I'm glad that I didn't push myself to the extreme limits because I was on my own that following week and I would have never been able to make it.
Okay, so we're going to transition into talking about Kekapin, the 12-hour challenge, and your victory in 50 miles there. First of all, congratulations on your win. What did
Thank
that
you.
victory mean to you?
I definitely proved to myself that I am an ultra runner and I'm a good ultra runner and I can do very hard things.
Absolutely.
Agree with that. 50 miles at Kekapin is not fun. Like it is like I went back a second time to get 50 miles. And then when I finished, I told Jason, I said, that's the reason why I came back. So now I'm done. So like
That's
yeah.
that's exactly what I said when I was well, at like in the middle of the race, I was like, "Are you ever gonna switch the course back?" And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, number one, no female has broken 50 miles since he switched the course in the direction that it runs now." So then I was like, "So if I break 50, will you switch it back?" And he was like, do you is this not challenging enough? And if you talk to people who have run it in both directions, a lot of people will say that the other direction is harder, but a lot of people will also say that the direction that it's run in now is harder. So now I'm curious, and if Jason will switch it back, I will definitely go back and I will run it. But I also said that I got my 50 miles, I won it 3 times, I will go back as a crew and a pacer, and
So
that's
I've
what I'll do next year.
I've run it both directions, and I would say the direction that I ran it in first, which 2020, was harder. So the opposite of what we do now. And I just
Yeah.
remember that like that big rock formation where you have to go up the rocks and up that hill. Like
Mhm.
I kind of like going up that better than trying to run down it because I just never felt like
Yeah.
comfortable going down it. So I would say it's
Right.
harder before than what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Katie and I are making faces like, "Are you for real?" Because I've only
Well,
done it the one direction, and I thought it was pretty
oh,
hard.
oh, yeah, but I think it's harder the other way.
I thought it was pretty hard, but as we have spoken, even as recently as the last podcast, I feel like it was at the last on the last podcast. I'm terrible at that descent, that steep downhill.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the pub runs that we were talking about this at, but I'm really bad at the descent. So that like what I was calling stairway to heaven, which are just those huge boulder stairs
Yeah.
going like that
Yeah.
you're rock climbing up.
Yep.
I think I would have a hard time with going down that, but otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what my opinion would be about switching.
I know that you were before this year, you were back to back first place. We talked about it a little bit, about the little bit of a pressure to come back and three-peat. You've already said that you are only going back if he's going to change the course for next year. So was on, I guess on June 20th, was there a time during the race when you realized that you had a chance to win?
Not really. It was a very small field of runners to begin with. And at the very beginning when I felt awful, I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna win today. Just because the girl that placed second, she is a strong runner and she made it 40 something miles last year. So I assumed, and we had talked about it, that she was probably going to try to go back and run more than what she did last year. So when she was in the lead for the first few laps, I was like, there's no way that I'll win today, which whatever, that's fine. And I enjoyed the race. Like I stopped and talked to people. There were hikers out on the trail and I was just making conversation with random people. Again, I wish there was a drone out there just because of how entertaining like these random people. I'm in pink flamingo shorts in the middle of the trail making conversation and jokes with people. They're probably like, "What the heck is wrong with this girl?" And so, anyways, I didn't it's hard to tell where everybody's at because it's a 5-mile loop and you can take breaks. You can start and go or start and finish when you want. So, when you come in and you take your breaks and you go back out, you don't really know where anybody's at in the race. So, I had no idea up until like towards the end when I had time to do like 2 or 3 more loops. I was told that everybody that all the other females were definitely slowing down and I was getting faster. So, today was probably going to be my lucky day for another Kakapen finish or another Kakapen win. So I just stuck it out and I tried.
So I know earlier I said that the backyard format was my favorite, but I also do really like the timed event format as well. But one of the things that makes me a little bit nervous in that format is because there's no pressure to restart the yard at the top of the hour, right? When you get back after the loop, you can sit in your aid station for as long as you want. So,
And
how do you when you're approaching an event like this, how do you balance finding the right amount of time to spend at your aid station each loop versus getting back out and being aggressive on the course?
usually, if I'm running or if there's someone around me that's coming in to finish the loop that we're on, I'll try to like follow them and see how long, like if they're gonna wait a few minutes and take a break and before they get going. Like I'll try to wait it out a little bit because a lot of times you're in the middle of a conversation and then you part ways. So it's a good way to like take a break and then, you both head back out together to finish the conversation that you were on or whatever. I've never really had a limit of, like, how much time that I spend, but I just know that if I get comfy, it's gonna be really hard to get out and get going again. So I try not to get too comfortable, try to stand, and I only sit down if I change my shoes. So, I mean, that seemed to work so far.
Hey, before we transition out of here, I want to ask a question about your progression. So I think I have this right. This is your third time running. You went 40 miles, 45, and 50. Is that correct?
Maybe? I can't remember if I did 45 the first 2
Okay.
years.
I think it was
So,
45, 45, 50.
okay.
Yeah, I think it was 45 both like 2 years in a row.
Okay. So my
And this year.
question from that is, you said that you ran a little slower at the beginning this year. So do you attribute those 5 miles to that, or did you spend less time in camp, or where did you make up that time at?
Definitely running slower. Definitely starting out a lot slower than what I typically run. And I mean, last year, I gunned it every loop that I went out. And I'm like, Adam, where are you? Because I know you're a fast runner.
Mhm.
So then I knew I was in trouble if I'm ahead of Adam Lowe or in a lap. I'm like, okay, I must be doing something wrong. And I have been. So yeah, my loops this year got faster as the day went on versus getting slower.
Well, I'd like to transition into talking about your training a little bit. And I know a little bit about this next question, but we'd like to know, how do you balance motherhood with your training?
I have a very athletic kid, so he likes to run and bike with me, so that helps a lot. No, I have a very good group of friends who they're all road runners, which is fine. I get up at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and try to get my miles in then, and then parent all day. Thank goodness my child is still napping, so if I'm exhausted, I can nap if it's day. Um, and then if I need to, I'll do stroller miles with him or he'll bike through the day with me. I try to do a bulk of the miles early in the morning, and then if I need to do any miles with him, we'll do them together, whether it's like stroller miles, biking, him on a scooter, whatever. And or I'll do like some evening miles on the treadmill. So yeah, and then strength training, not very good at that, but that comes and goes. But he'll go down in the basement with me and he'll try to lift the little weights. So it is fun. We make it fun, and that's how it's always been. I've really had to get into the mentality of this is my season of life, and the seasons change so quickly and so often. So, what works today and this week might not work next week or next month, and we'll change it again. But for now, like, I come to conclusion that running 100 miles on the canal or the road or a non-technical trail is it's fine. That's still 100 miles, and that's just where I'm at. Staying local is where I'm at right now, and it works. Not a big deal. Like, wherever you're at, it's fine, and it doesn't make you less of a runner. I used to think when I would go run with my friends at Patapsco and they were talking about they're going to do Rim to River or Massanutten or they're going up to Catoctin, and I'm like, that terrifies me because all of my miles are on the road or on the treadmill. They're all flat, they're all paved. And the fear of injury screams so loud that like I'm terrified in the wildlife, terrified to sign up for those big races like Massanutten and Rim to River, or there was a big ultra in Snowshoe, West Virginia that I'm interested in. And I'm like, that day will come that I can train on the trails, but right now I'm going to have fun training with my son on the roads, and I'm gonna stick to local races, and I'm going to just run what I can when I can and just make the best of it. And it's worked this far, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well, hey, so with the being scared of wildlife, I want to touch on that for a second. So that's what makes races like Kekapin, where it's a 5 mile loop, and races like the last one standing, where it's a 4 mile loop. You're never more than 2.5 miles, 2 miles away from like the start line. So does that also factor into some of these races that you're picking as well?
Little bit. Cape really scares me because they're known for rattlesnakes, and there are posted signs everywhere. Jason sends it out in the email. Knock on wood, I've never seen one. I did hear one this year. I did hear it, and I like zoomed past the area that it was at every single time after that, or I'd turn my music up really loud and like I don't want to hear it. But so I keep going back knowing that I have this big fear for the wildlife, and I know, this is a common area for rattlesnakes, but I'm also like, you're facing your fears. You can do this. Like, this is part of what you want to do with your life and you want to face your fears. You want to prove to yourself that you can go out and you can go do this.
Yeah, that's one of those things where like people don't realize. I know like on the towpath, Chris, our biggest problem the one year you paced me during the 100 was the bullfrogs, right? That we almost stepped on, and those things they were everywhere. But yeah, they I know Kekapin can have some rattlesnakes out there, and that
Yeah.
can be pretty scary. Maybe you need those when you're on lap 9 and you only have 45 minutes left to finish. You need one to.
Yeah, that's true.
So, hey, when you're running one of these long distance races, one of these ultras, and things start to go wrong during the race, and let's say you're not near the camp or you're not near anyone else, what do you do to kind of get past that little low moment that you're having?
I just think of how far I've come. Um, I did this whole running thing for health and fitness, and I have, I've made it into the ultra distance world. And I always think back to that first ultra that I did, where I put my feet in the water, And I was like, wow, I'm really good at this. I just did 40 miles in 6 hours. Like, this is wild. And when I went up to receive my award for first female, somebody said, that girl ran 40 miles. She had a smile on her face the entire time. She was so nice. She was so social. She talked to us every time she laughed us. And so like anytime I'm feeling down, I think of that. Like, it's not about the winning, it's not about the paces. All that can go out the door, but I always want to be recognized as, you know, she smiled the whole time. She looked so happy. She doesn't look like she's running X amount of miles or for X amount of hours or whatever. So I try to always think that, like, there's going to be somebody up ahead or who catches up to me. And I'm like, I don't want them to like know that I'm having a really dark time or a really hard time. I want them to be like, oh, she's really chipper or something. Or, if I am experiencing a tough time, like, I want I want to be approachable, and like, somebody might have really good advice, but I don't want them to, like, look at me and be like, "She looks miserable, we're not going to even approach her." So, yeah, I always think back of that first race that I won, and people recognize, like, how happy I was and how social, and, like, I always wanna be that person.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I try to take the same approach. Like Adam made a comment during the last one standing that, no matter what, for like the first 16, 17 yards, I came back and I just looked happy. And some of that was, I really was happy because I was
Yeah.
having a good time. But some of it too was I was trying to convince myself I was having a good time so that I could deal with the foot pain and the leg pain and
Yeah,
those types of things. So I do think that how you approach it mentally and how you present
yeah,
yourself really does make a huge difference. So that's awesome. So I
yeah.
think we're gonna try to start wrapping this up because I feel like we could keep talking all night long. This has just been an amazing conversation. But for our listeners and for us, what's next for Alyssa? What's on your race calendar for either later this summer or into the fall?
I am taking the summer off just because I did those back to back to back races. And I don't usually race that close together. So I'm going to take the summer off from training. My friends will start training for the Chicago Marathon, and I think they're going to do the Lock to Lock Marathon to try to be Q. So I'm going to have training partners, but what am I going to run? I don't know. I have been doing Rocky Gap 50K for the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I guess it's been like 4 years since they started hosting that there. And I've been trying to chip away at a goal and I can't get it. So I think I'm gonna leave it and I'm gonna do Fire on the Mountain. I want to do that one. That one's been on my list, but it's so close to Rocky Gap. So I have that for the fall. I'm not signed up for it, but I have my eye on it.
Well, that will be a lot of fun. I can
Yeah.
guarantee it. Is there a goal that's been on your mind for a long time?
Sorry,
Oh,
Katie,
I'm
can I
sorry.
interrupt before you ask this question?
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, wait.
Okay. No,
No,
no, no, that's okay.
Chris, I'm going to interrupt you. You may not ask your question if it has to do anything with wildlife on the Fire on the Mountain course.
No.
My hike's there. I know that there's wildlife. So I'm just gonna train. I'm gonna try to train really fast to try to be done as quick as possible. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just going to make a comment, Adam, that it almost sounds like we're stacking podcasts up to introduce the field for the women's 50K
Yeah.
Fire on the
Oh,
Mountain.
oh,
So
I
this
That's
is
know.
a
going to
Yeah.
great
be
idea.
exciting.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So, do you have a race or a goal that's been on your mind for a long time?
Mm, Not really, because I am fairly new and uh, getting into racing. And again, I want to stick to local races just because if it comes to needing a pacer, I easily can grab people from the Cumberland area, from Annapolis. and I have my son, my family's here, and just the logistics of planning. I don't have any goals. I would like to do another 100 and try to get under 20 hours. But other than that, I don't have any big races or any goals of distances or miles. My 4-year-old is not impressed with my 100 miles and said that he wants me to run 260 miles and then I can have a piece of chocolate. So we are going to Tahoe next year for a wedding. So I would like to scope that area out and maybe put my name in the lottery for that race. But that's a very big, ambitious goal in the like next 5 years.
Is there a piece of advice that you would give someone who is just thinking about doing their first ultra?
Just go for it. Leave the paces at the door. Leave, the negativity of you're not worthy at the door because you are worthy. Everybody has a place on the trail. You meet so many amazing people with amazing stories. You make great, great connections, and you will most likely meet people right outside of your back door. You will meet people who are better than you. You will meet people that you can outrun, but you make these connections and you run together and you build a community in ultra running, and I love it. It's fantastic. And I think, with everybody having a place in the ultra running community, she's very supportive.
So Alyssa, as we wrap up here, for our listeners, where can they find you on the social medias and where could they continue to follow your journey?
I'm more on Instagram, but most of my content is just of my kid. And then I have Facebook. I'll share race recaps. I'd like to get better about sharing my like more of my running just because, I am a mom to a young child. And what I noticed at a lot of these races is there's not a lot of young moms with young kids out there. And I want to open up that window. I want women to see that no matter what age you are at or what age your kids are at, you can make this happen. You can go out, you can run 5 miles, you can run 50 miles, you can run the 24-hour races. You make your training fit your lifestyle. There's not one particular lifestyle. So, yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and maybe after this, I'll try to get better at posting what my training looks like with being a mom.
Alyssa, one thing that we didn't include, we don't usually tell our guests about, is when we're all done with the podcast, we like to do what we call the after party. So I have a list of about 8 questions for you, and they are designed to be answered in 1 or 2 words. So it's usually like a either or a this or that. And then you just pick your favorite, no explanation needed, and then we just go to the next question. So are you ready for that? Sounds good. All right.
Ready?
All right. So the first question I have for you is treadmill, love it or hate it?
Love it.
Hills or headwind?
Hill.
Least favorite race distance?
5K.
What's harder, the first mile or the last mile?
The first mile.
Coffee before a run, yes or no?
No.
No. All right. 2 more. Do you check the weather before a race?
Not usually.
And one more for you. If you have one song you can put in your headphones for the final mile of a race, what would it be?
That's a tough one. We're into this Oliver Tree guy or whatever, Orn and Life Goes On or something, and that would probably be because there's a verse that goes on and on and on and on and on and on. That, like, it just feels like when you're running, it just goes on and on and on and on.
Chris, you'll have to put that song in the show notes so we can all listen to it and figure it out.
Sounds good.
And now it's gonna get stuck in your head. You'll
You
sing it
know,
while you're sleeping.
Alyssa, your running journey reminds me a lot of like Samir and Eli. Just kind of how they dipped their toe in the water, as you say, and then they kind of got around a group of crazy runners who run a lot, and then they kind of joined in, and now they are also a crazy runner who runs a lot, and they're inspiring other people just like you are. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story about running, motherhood, and just going from race to race to race and taking us on that journey with you. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the C&O. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing.